President Trump says he's working with Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry to send an American hospital ship to Greenland. Trump made the announcement on his Truth Social just before hosting Republican governors at the White House. In his post, Trump says the U.S. would send what he called a great hospital boat to care for people in Greenland, who he claimed are sick and not being treated.
Something just happened in the waters off Greenland that has exposed the Trump administration's entire foreign policy posture as a dangerous and humiliating fraud. A real military emergency, a real allied nation responding, a real moment of American vulnerability that the White House tried to bury under a midnight social media post so absurd that defense experts are still shaking their heads 48 hours later. Because here is what actually happened. And here is what Trump claimed happened. And the gap between those two realities tells you everything about how this administration operates when it thinks nobody is paying close enough attention. Make sure you're subscribed to The John Brown Show, because what I am about to walk you through involves a nuclear submarine, a medical evacuation, a NATO ally that Trump has been threatening and insulting for months, and a White House response so disconnected from reality that military professionals cannot discuss it without pausing to collect themselves. Here is the actual sequence of events. A United States military submarine surfaced approximately 7 miles off the coast of Greenland. A sailor aboard required emergency medical evacuation. The vessel could not handle the situation internally, and the nation that responded, the nation that sent aircraft and personnel to extract that American sailor and transport them to safety, was Denmark. The same Denmark that Trump has been publicly threatening, insulting, and attempting to bully into surrendering Greenland to American control. Denmark saved an American sailor, and then Trump announced he was sending a hospital ship to provide medical care to Greenland. Share this video because the hospital ship claim is not just false. It is false in multiple directions simultaneously, and the details of exactly how false it is reveal the complete detachment from military reality operating inside this White House. The United States Navy maintains 2 hospital ships in its fleet. Both of them are currently laid up in port. Neither vessel has its boilers fired, neither is crewed and ready for deployment, neither is heading anywhere near Greenland or the North Atlantic. The ships do not exist as a deployable asset in any operational sense at this moment. Trump announced their dispatch to a territory that never requested them, does not need them, and already has a healthcare system that military and intelligence experts describe as among the best in the world. Think about what it means for a president to announce a military deployment that cannot physically happen. That involves vessels that are not operational, to a location that explicitly rejected the offer, in response to a situation where the country he is supposedly helping just rescued one of our own sailors because our submarine could not handle its own medical emergency. Make sure you're subscribed because a former senior official from Danish intelligence just explained exactly what is actually happening here and why Denmark's decision to make this rescue public was not accidental. When a United States nuclear submarine surfaces near a foreign coastline, it is abandoning one of its most critical operational advantages. Submarines derive their strategic value almost entirely from stealth and undetected positioning. Surfacing 7 miles from a populated area to request assistance from an allied nation is not a routine procedure. It is an emergency measure that compromises the vessel's mission profile and reveals its approximate operational area to anyone paying attention. Denmark's Arctic Command made this rescue public. That was a choice. In the world of military and intelligence operations, publicizing a sensitive assistance operation involving a foreign nuclear submarine is not the default response. It is a deliberate signal. And the signal being sent was unmistakable. While Trump boasts about American military dominance and threatens Denmark over Greenland, Denmark just pulled one of America's sailors off one of America's nuclear submarines 7 miles from Nuuk. The Danes ran laps around American communication strategy in 48 hours. They did not need to say a word about Trump directly. The facts spoke with devastating clarity on their own. Share this video because the broader context of what Denmark has done for the United States and what this administration has done to Denmark in return is something every American needs to understand before the next NATO summit. After the September 11th attacks, Article 5 of the NATO Charter was invoked for the first and only time in the alliance's history. Every NATO member nation was called upon to treat an attack on America as an attack on all of them. Denmark answered. Danish soldiers deployed. Danish military personnel served alongside American forces in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Some of them did not come home. In the months before this submarine incident, American embassy staff in Copenhagen were directed to remove small flags that Danish citizens had placed in flower boxes across from the embassy. Those flags bore the names of Danish soldiers who gave their lives serving beside American troops. The embassy had those memorial flags removed. The Danes who placed them there came to protest outside their former allies' diplomatic mission. And then one of our sailors needed help, and Denmark came anyway. Think about what that says about the character of the Danish people compared to the character of the administration currently representing America abroad. Denmark honored its alliance even after being insulted, threatened, and having its war dead dishonored by the country those soldiers died to support. Make sure you're subscribed, because what former Danish intelligence professionals are saying publicly about the state of the alliance reveals how severe the damage actually is. Denmark has historically been one of the most pro-American nations in Europe, not grudgingly supportive of the alliance, genuinely, culturally, deeply committed to the partnership that was built through shared sacrifice over decades. That foundation is cracking in ways that intelligence and security experts say will take years to repair regardless of who occupies the White House next. The Danes watching these events unfold are not the fringe. They are veterans. They are former intelligence officials. They are people who built careers and relationships around the American alliance and who defended that alliance to skeptical European colleagues for years. And they are now publicly stating that the Trump administration represents something they cannot recognize as the America they committed to, something they describe not as a political disagreement between allies, but as a fundamental abandonment of the values the alliance was built on. The word being used in Danish security and intelligence circles to describe the current situation is not frustration. It is not disappointment. The word is cancer. A former senior Danish intelligence official used that precise word to describe what Trumpism represents to the alliance. And the prescription attached to that diagnosis was that Europeans have concluded they need to secure their own defense because they can no longer rely on Washington to honor its commitments. Share this video because the Greenland healthcare claim exposes a second layer of this administration's detachment from basic facts. Greenland's healthcare system is provided free to every resident. Walk in and get treated. No bill, no insurance requirement, no financial barrier to accessing medical care. The Danish system that backs it up for cases requiring specialized treatment is consistently ranked among the finest in the world. The veterinary clinic that American observers visited in Greenland was described as having infrastructure that compared favorably to rural healthcare facilities in the United States where patients without money are turned away. Trump announced a hospital ship deployment to provide medical care to a population that has universal free healthcare, to a nation that just demonstrated its healthcare capacity by successfully evacuating and treating an American military patient. The announcement was not rooted in any assessment of Greenland's actual medical needs. It was a midnight social media post designed to create the impression of American generosity and military reach in a region where Trump's territorial ambitions have been publicly and firmly rejected. Think about what the people of Greenland and Denmark made of that announcement. Danish intelligence and security professionals described it as senseless propaganda, not as an insult requiring a response, as something so disconnected from reality that the appropriate reaction is to shake your head rather than engage with it seriously. That is the international standing of American communications under this administration. Former close allies have moved from trusting us to tolerating us to pitying us. Make sure you're subscribed because the submarine's presence in those specific waters raises questions that have not yet been fully answered. 7 miles from Nuuk is not a typical operating position for a nuclear attack submarine conducting a standard polar transit. Intelligence and security experts with submarine experience noted publicly that this proximity to a populated Greenlandic city is unusual regardless of the stated mission profile. Whether additional submarines have been observed in those waters in recent weeks remains under investigation by people with access to the relevant information. What that presence would suggest about American operational intentions in the region that Trump has explicitly targeted for territorial acquisition is a question that European defense establishments are actively examining. The Trump administration threatened Greenland, threatened Denmark, refused to rule out military force, announced fictional hospital ship deployments, had memorial flags for Danish war dead removed from embassy flower boxes, and then needed Denmark to rescue one of our submarine crew members 7 miles off the coast of the territory Trump says he intends to take. Share this video because the resistance to this administration is not limited to domestic courts and domestic elections. It is global and it is growing. From Munich to Davos to Copenhagen to the streets outside the American embassy in Denmark, the international consensus about what this administration represents has solidified. World leaders who were cautious and accommodating in the early months have shifted toward open pushback. Bond markets have responded to overreach. Allied nations have begun reorganizing their defense structures around the assumption that Washington cannot be counted on. And the people who spent careers building and defending the American alliance are now leading protests outside American embassies. Denmark answered Article 5 after September 11th. Denmark answered the call to serve alongside Americans in 2 wars. Denmark honored its fallen with flags on a Copenhagen street corner, and then Denmark came to the Arctic and pulled an American sailor off a nuclear submarine 7 miles from Nuuk. That is what an ally looks like. And the contrast with what Washington has offered in return has not been lost on anyone watching. This story is just getting started. Stay tuned.